Well, I heard a record, as we call it, Pops, and it was called West End Blues, and it was a lady that we called, she had a little fast house, sporting house, and I used to run errands for her, and he would say, "Oh, we do, oh, we do, we do," and I'd wonder why he didn't sing any words, and he had the most beautiful feeling, you know. So I wanted his feeling, and I wanted Bessie's big volume. She had a big, loud sound.
And you got them both. You know, you talk with such affection about Bessie Smith, Louis Armstrong. There seems to be a real companionship, lady, among the greats in the jazz world. It doesn't seem to be as competitive a field as some others. In some other fields, when you get up there, why, it's kind of cutthroat. And in the jazz field, the jazz greats seem to love one another and work with one another.
You mean like when Dizzy and Louie and myself and Ellen, we all get together?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we all suffered and we all had it. So when we get there, we appreciate it.
You appreciate it?
That's the first thing I can say.
I imagine that. So,
that's the way I feel about it.
Were you a good friend of the late Art Tatum, the great jazz pianist who died just a few days ago?
Oh, yes. He loved my mother so much, and Mom loved him, and whenever he would come to New York or was around, he would stop with us, and I'll tell you a funny story. Him and Bernie Hannigan, you must have heard of Bernie Hannigan, he wrote songs. So Bernie Hannigan and him got in a little tiff one morning in front of Jimmy's Chicken Shack in Harlem. I don't know if I should tell this story or not. Bernie probably shoot me. And I kept saying, "Bernie, leave me alone. Leave me alone now. I don't want to hit you." And, you know, he couldn't even tell where Bernie was, but, talking about his sense of direction. So Bernie was behind him, so he couldn't kick him in front. He turned around and kicked him in the back. Oh, I knew Art very well. He's my dear friend.
Was he a kind man? Was he an expressive man? And was he unhappy?
You could tell from his music.
Yes.
He was there. He's a doll.
Of course, speaking of Art Tatum, do you have any idea how old he was when he died?
I don't know, but I don't think Art could have been more than about 56, 54 years old.
Oh, was he that old?
He was in his 50s, yeah.
Because the question, Billy, that I was going to ask was that why so many jazz greats seem to die so early. Now, Bix Beiderbecke it happened to. Fats Waller wasn't too old. Charlie Parker, Frankie Teschmacher.
Well, Mike, the only way I can answer that question is we try to live 100 days in one day, and we try to please so many people, and we try to, like myself, I want to bend this note and bend that note and sing this way and sing that way and get all the feeling and eat all the good foods and travel all in one day, and you can't do it. So I think that's why.
Of course, there was one spot in your book in particular that I think revealed a little bit of you, and it didn't seem to me that you liked perhaps to live that way that much anymore. I'd like to quote back something that you wrote in your book. It was a line that had a good deal of meaning and simplicity. You wrote as follows, lady. "You've got to have something to eat and a little love in your life. Everything I am and everything I want out of life goes smack back to that." Now, when did you discover that, and what does that mean to you, Billy?
Well, we all have to eat and we all have to sleep, and I was hungry so long. And now that I do know how to eat and sleep and I have traveled, ask me that question again. I can answer it better than that.
All right, actually, as you started to, as I read it and as you started to answer, I discovered that what you said a little earlier was right. You like to take life by the forelock and live it while you've got it, and that's why, as you suggested, some jazz performers die young, because they do. They get a little to eat and a little to love.
And when you get it, you just, you know.
You use it. Life is to use is the way that you feel. But again, I'll give it to you. You got to have something to eat and a little love in your life.
You must have love. You see, all I had was my mom. I never had brothers or sisters or cousins or uncles or people running out. All we had was one preacher, and he used to come every Sunday. And Mama said, oh, go on, eat all you like, Reverend so-and-so, I can't even think of his name. And myself, in those days, I did have a cousin. I had a cousin Charlie and a cousin Dorothy. And the children had to wait. And he would eat, and he'd bring his wife and his whole family sometime, and we'd wait, and we'd wind up with the gravy. So one Sunday, I just made a boo-boo, and I says, Mama, you know there's no more in the pot. So what I do, I got a whipping.
You've mentioned some of your good friends who are musicians, Billy. But I know a couple of good friends of yours who are not musicians, and I'd like to know how you got to know them and what it is that you have most in common with them. There are two names in particular. Well, no, I'll give you three. Tallulah Bankhead and Charles Lawton and Orson Welles.
Well, I think I knew them. I don't think I knew them because, well, they were just brave enough to come up in Harlem when they was starting jazz. At that time, you know, most people were afraid to come to Harlem, and those that did, you know, it was one of those things, just one of those things. But anyway.
How long ago was that?
No, don't go telling my age now. Well, I was, they started then, I was only about 14. And I'll never forget the night I met Mr. Lawton. They came in, and I had no idea it was a movie actor. He was looking for his valet. That's how he got wandering around up there.
Up in Harlem?
Yeah. And I think his name was George. And he was looking for George. And so George had told him about me. And he's asking for Billie Holiday. He's looking for George. And I said, who's that man? Who's asking for me? That's how we got acquainted. And afterwards, he always comes and see him. He sing whenever he's around. He's been very kind. And Miss Bankhead, I think she's there. I love her. In fact, I think it's three ladies, Miss Barrymore, Miss Bankhead, and, you know, Helen.
Well, now, when you mention people like Ethel Barrymore or Tallulah Bankhead, is it the fact that you are performers, the three of you? Is that what you have in common? Or do you feel that there's been...
performers there, actresses, artists. I look at them like, woo.
And you don't consider yourself in the same league?
No, my God, no.
Why not? Now, why not? You've worked as hard, you've thought as much about it, you have developed a style, a technique just as much as they have done, you please just as many people, so what in the world, why don't you feel that you have the same quality? Why are you not just as much an artiste as any one of them?
Well, maybe I am in my little way, but my Lord, they make me cry. They make me happy. I don't know if I've ever done that to people, not really.
Oh, I think you do. I think you do know that.
Maybe I do.
You know, one of the most remarkable things about jazz performers is that white or colored, you're way ahead of so many of the rest of us when it comes to desegregation. I heard a story about you this afternoon, as a matter of fact, from a good friend of yours by the name of Leonard Feather.
Wow, he is my boy. I love Leonard.
And Leonard told me about the time, Leonard and Bob Bach told me about the time when you sang at the Ritz, when they're in Boston, at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston, and there was still a policy...
Wow, up on the roof.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there was still a policy of no colored singers being with a white organization. Would you tell that story to us now, and about you and Helen Forrest?
Well, I'd rather not. I mean, it was a drag. It was a drag for Helen, too, because she was a sweet kid. And they said I couldn't sit on the bandstand, which I didn't want to do. I never did.
They said in Boston that you couldn't sit on the bandstand.
Well, they didn't want to. Artie had a rule that we both should sit on the bandstand, you know. In fact, Tony Pastor, you know, he was blowing in the band. He played tennis. So I said, sorry for Tony, he's got something to do. Mm-hmm. I said, I feel like a fool sitting up here. He's sitting, you know, waiting 10, 15, 20 minutes before I sing. I says, Artie, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. So whenever you know, it was all right. I would sneak off. I'd have business in the ladies' room or somewhere. But poor Helen, she'd have to sit there. So when we finally got a Ritz-Carlton, that was a good deal for me because I didn't have to sit, you know. Yeah. So then Helen and I both, you know, she was sweet about the whole deal. She was a wonderful girl about that. She said, I don't see why, if I can sit here, why a lady can't sit, you know. So I said, I don't want to sit. You remember us? So it was one of those things. But after a while, it worked out very nicely.
But why is it that the color thing has not ever really been that important with musicians as it is with some of the rest of us, as I say?
Well, I think the only answer I can give to that is I guess we have more nerve than other people, and we get a chance to meet more people and bigger people. Like we get a chance, like I met Roosevelt's son. How did I meet him? In Cafe Society.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had nerve enough to go over and say, hello, aren't you Roosevelt's son? He's not going to say, get away from my table, you know. He's going to say, hello, who are you, you know. So I think we have a more of an opportunity to meet people. And if they are real people, you know, nice people, they're going to show us around, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why musicians and actors and artists can sort of straighten all that deal out. That's the way I can put it.
And because talent, it's been said...
And if you get up there and sing or dance or make a speech, and after you've had nerve enough to hit them on the shoulder and they like it,
yeah,
you know.
Then all...
So everybody gets to be one happy family. That's something I can explain.
I understand. I know that one of the reasons for your present happiness is your husband, Louis. Now, you say that in your book that he was a preacher when he was 15 years old?
He certainly was. You should hear his mother. She's 18 years old and 89 years old. 18, ooh, wow, I hope she's not in this program. She's 89 years old, and her name is Tinsy Goins. And Louis had a dog, and he loved this dog so much. And she said the dog, he was terrible. His hair was all over the place, and he had fleas and this and that. Anyway, the dog died. And Louis buried the dog, and he preached. And years later, when we got married, we go to Buffalo. We're walking down the street, and somebody says, hey, preach. Come here, man. Well, I kept right on going. He sort of turns around. Hey, preach, what's the matter? You don't know me no more now? Hey, preach. So I says, what's wrong with that man? He says, he's called me. That's how I found out the story. But all his hometown people call him Preach.
Well, as a former preacher, how does he react to some of your more torrid blues songs, some of the more suggestive lyrics?
No, he tells me how to sing and what to sing. And, it's just getting terrible. He can't even pat his foot.
Tell me this. What is it that you want out of life professionally? As a matter of fact, if we can ask you a thing like this and ask for a quick answer, what is it that you're after out of life yourself, Billy, now?
Right now?
Yeah.
I want a beautiful home. I want kids. And I'd like to cook. And if you ever come to my house, have you ever eaten Southern cooking?
Oh, indeed I have.
I bet you never eaten pig's feet.
Any pig's feet? Oh, yeah. Sure I've had pig's
Chitlins?
feet. Chitlins, too. There's a girl who works for me. There's a girl who works for me out in the country. Her name is Ann Cheek.
Yeah.
She can cook up a storm, believe me.
Well, that's the kind of stuff I like to cook.
In addition to which, I'm married to a girl who lived down in Haiti for a long time, and she makes rice and beans, and I understand that rice and beans is one of your favorites.
Red beans.
Yeah.
Red beans. I get a nice top around steak, and I have it ground up, you know. I put garlic and green peppers and onions and, oh, wow, and the beans, you know, boil them down. And I make my pig's feet. After I boil them, I bake them, and I bake them until they're almost like potato chips.
As crisp as that?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. But what you want out of life, that is a home and kids?
That's right, and I want to be able to have my own club. I want a small club.
A club, you mean, in which you'll...
My own
sing
club. I can walk in.
too?
If I feel like singing 89 songs, I can. If I want to sing 2 songs, I can. If I don't feel like going to work, I don't have to. I want a little place to hold maybe 150, 200 people. Very cozy, you know, just all my friends and everybody else who wants to come.
Why, sure.
That's what I want.
And I think that probably everybody who comes is bound to be a friend of yours, Billy.
Thank you.
Billy, thank you for coming and letting us learn a little bit about you here on Night Beat tonight.
It's been wonderful talking to you.
We're going to come and see you Saturday night in concert at Carnegie Hall.
Thank you very much.
Billie Holiday, who's become a legend in her own time, partially because she's been knocked around a good deal and because the world knows about it, but there's a more important reason, too. Billie, lady, is a legend because she's a great singer and a courageous human being.